Today, we're going to recap the 2024 horror thriller Cobweb, a spine-chilling tale of family secrets and fear. The movie centers around an 8-year-old boy named Peter who starts hearing mysterious knocking sounds from inside the walls of his house. As he investigates these sounds, he uncovers a dark secret that his parents have been keeping hidden from him. If you want to know more about this movie, stay tuned and watch our full recap. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. The story starts a week before Halloween. A quiet and shy boy, Peter goes to school where all his classmates play and make commotion all over the classroom, but he sits still without making any noise. He has a small, loving family where his mother, Carol, teaches him to play the piano. Like other children, Peter doesn't go outside. He plays alone and appears to be a loner. While sleeping, he hears a sound coming behind his wall at night, which wakes him up. But ignoring the sound, he goes to sleep again. But this time, a bit louder sound startled him. He gets up to check. He keeps his head and makes a sound with his hand on the wall. Surprisingly, someone from the other side also makes a sound as a reply. Terrified, Peter goes to his parents' room and wakes her mom to tell her what happened. Carol goes to his room, taking Peter with her. Then she also makes noise by knocking on the wall, but they hear no sound this time. So Carol tells his son he has a beautiful imagination, so it must be in his head. He should sleep peacefully without worrying. The following day, while going to school by school bus, Peter gets bullied by the other students. They even threaten him by saying he'll get more at the recess. In the classroom, a substitute teacher, Miss Devine, will teach them until Mrs. Bittler returns. Miss Devine sees no one but Peter in the classroom and asks him why he didn't go to recess. Even though he replies that he doesn't like it, Peter doesn't go there as the other students will bully him more, and he has no friends to play with. Miss Devine doesn't force him to go and tells him to help her with the Halloween decorations. She also asks Peter what he will be on that occasion, but he has no idea. At that time, a tiny spider comes to Peter's table, which freaks him out. But Miss Devine helps to trap the spider in a glass and frees it outside the window with Peter. At night, he tells his wishes about Halloween at the dinner table as he wants to dress up and go trick-or-treating. But it looks like his parents are against the idea. As Peter looks upset with his parents' strict decision, his father tells him a story about the old house down the end of the lane with boarded windows. But Carol looks annoyingly at her husband for telling the story. Still, he continues. Before Peter was born, a girl who vanished on Halloween lived in that house. Her disappearance while she was out trick-or-treating remains a chilling mystery. His parents strictly forbid him from venturing out on Halloween night to prevent a similar fate from befall Peter. At night, Peter turns a torchlight towards the wall. It doesn't make a sound but moves a bit, which he doesn't notice. When he's about to sleep, he hears someone calling his name in a sweet, girly voice. Hearing that, Peter starts screaming and calls his dad. Peter's dad, Mark, thinks the rats are making these weird sounds. So the following day, along with Peter, Mark brings the rat killer to his house and spreads it on the corners. Young Peter doesn't like the idea of killing rats. That's why his father tells him that sometimes people have to make tough decisions to protect their family. He's implying something we'll see later in the movie with this line. The next day, at school, Miss Devine notices that Peter made a drawing covered in black color, and in the corner, a boy is sleeping on the bed. In another corner, "Help me" is written. The boy in the picture seems to be Peter himself. This distressing picture makes Miss Devine concerned about Peter, and she goes to his house to talk with his parents about it. As she rings the doorbell, Carol comes out and shows disrespect by never inviting the teacher into her house. When Miss Devine shows her the picture Peter drew, it makes her angry and annoyed. She thinks it is embarrassing, and Peter's over-imaginative ability makes him draw this lousy picture. Without giving Miss Devine any chance to talk, Carol goes inside and shuts the door. Coming to Peter's bedroom, Carol starts questioning his son. "What is this? Why are you asking for help?" He denies it and whispers to himself that she is asking for help. At night, Peter again hears a knocking sound. Then she starts talking. She tells him not to be scared and wants to talk to him. But Peter thinks it's all in the head, so he tells her to stay quiet as he's just imagining the entire event. She replies that it could be or could not be his imagination, but he could use her as his friend as he doesn't have any. So they start being friends. The next day at school, all the students, including Peter, are painting their pumpkins. Peter's classmate, Brian, sees their teacher praising Peter's drawing, which makes him jealous. So, after school, Brian pushes Peter and smashes his pumpkin. Upset, Peter cries in his bed at night when she starts asking him what happened. As Peter tells her the story about the incident, he is advised to stand up for himself. The next day, Brian apologizes to Peter and gives him a pumpkin that is already drawn like the previous one. But the evil girl's encouragement made Peter push Brian from the staircase, which broke Brian's leg. For this incident, Peter gets expelled from the school. At home, Peter's dad shouts at him and asks him the reason for his violent behavior. Then, his mother tells his father about the picture that Peter drew, which makes him angrier. As Mark asks him why he's drawn that picture, Peter's replies that he heard the girl in a firm voice. But Mark completely neglects whatever he says and sends him to the basement as he is grounded. Even though Carol doesn't want Peter to be sent there, Mark forces him to go there. They move the fridge where a secret door is hidden. With this door, they go to the basement. They leave Peter in the dark and crummy room, where he first calls for his friend, and then starts crying alone. On the other hand, the principal warned Miss Devine not to get involved with students' personal matters. Besides, a girl named Rebecca Holbrook went missing from Peter's neighborhood a long time ago, which made Peter's parents more protective of him. Here, Peter finds another chamber under the basement covered with wood planks and cushions. Peter even sees a teddy bear lying on the ground of that hidden chamber. Carol's concerned face while doing laundry implies that something weird is going on that she knows about. Miss Devine here writes her number on Peter's math quiz paper and comes to give it to his house. Mark invites her inside. The atmosphere of their home is very gloomy, and the weird thing is that Carol always locks their door with a key, which she always wears on her neck as a pendant. Inside their house, Miss Devine sees Mark walking with a hammer and he's bleeding from his hand. But he doesn't seem to care too much about it. Besides, when Devine asks where they choose to send Peter for school, they plan to keep him in the house, almost like a prisoner. Besides, when she wants to meet with him, they forbid her. Everything seems so odd to her. Even Carol starts shouting and behaves very roughly with her. At that time, Peter hears their conversation and starts banging on the door. Mark tells Miss Devine to leave their house, but while leaving, she hears the banging noise and asks Mark about it. As he tells her it's coming from the washing machine, she's forced to leave the house. Mark comes outside to give Devine her car keys while still grabbing the hammer. Carol bakes cupcakes for Peter at night and takes him out of the basement. While bathing him, she tells him that he'll teach him from now on. Besides, Peter says he'll try to grow up and won't do anything that will upset his parents. But they also remind Peter not to have nightmares, as if people can control them. As Carol and Mark leave after tucking him in the bed, Peter goes to the wall and starts knocking. The girl begins telling him that she is worried about him as her parents also locked her up in the basement. She tells him to be very careful. Peter wants to see her, but she tells him he'll scream seeing her face, which will get them caught by their parents. As Peter insists, she tells him to look through the hole in the wall. Seeing a scary-looking eye through the hole, Peter gets terrified and backs up. She then tells her that she's Peter's sister, and she's waiting for him to be big enough to move the clock in their parents' room that hides a door. She also tells him their parents are evil, and he'll soon realize everything. A bit later, Peter hears knocking on the door, which gets open on its own. Then he sees his mom entering a room strangely. Then he sees his father in the corner of his room making a peculiar noise and says, "Look what you've done to your mother, Peter." Then we see evil Carol, glowing eyes and a sinister smile looking directly at Peter. She runs to his bed and forces him to sleep. At that time, Peter wakes up from his nightmare and hugs his mom. When Carol asks him about his dream, he says he can't remember it anymore. Later at night, Peter asks the girl behind the wall how she talks to him if their parents keep her in the room. She says she escaped, scratched, and crawled her way to Peter. She also tells him that when they get enough of her, they'll kill her and put Peter in the wall. But Peter doesn't trust her as his parents can never kill anybody. She instructs him to dig a specific spot in the garden to convince him of her words. As he does so, he finds a skull in the garden. At that time, we see Carol hiding something behind the clock and walking outside to check on Peter. Peter somehow manages to control the situation. Otherwise, he could get caught by her mother. After that, Peter's sister starts telling him the unfortunate story of her life. A trick-or-treater came before they locked her in the wall on Halloween. As her sister asked her for help, Carol saw it and killed the girl who came for trick-or-treating. Hearing all that, Peter decides to help her and run away from this house. He will ask for help from his teacher, Miss Devine, as he finds her number on his exam paper. Then Peter goes to his parents' room to use the phone. He calls her and she even picks up, but unfortunately Carol already comes into the room. The call gets disconnected before Miss Devine calls again, and Carol answers. She tells Miss Devine that Peter missed her, but now he's too shy to talk to her. As Carol cuts the call, she starts tormenting Peter with words and brings him into his room. She suddenly sees the hole in the wall and gets petrified. She asks Peter what she said to him and says that whatever will happen, he's to blame. At night, Peter's sister tells him that she heard everything and they'll kill both of them. So Peter has to do something now. He comes downstairs and sees his parents are discussing something dire. As they see him, Peter hurriedly returns to his room and pretends to sleep. Mark comes to his room and says he knows he's awake and tomorrow he must help him in the garden. The next day, in the garden, Mark tells Peter to start digging with a shovel as they have to bury the pumpkins infected by the black rot. Outside the house, we see a microbus stop where Brian shows some bigger boys the home of Peter, guessing they will do something naughty as revenge. At night, while having dinner, Mark and Carol are having their soup, but Peter isn't. Mark tastes something different on the soup, and with the smell, he gradually understands that the food is poisoned. Peter mixed the rat killer in the food because they tried to hurt his sister. Already in pain, Mark tells Carol to call 911 immediately, but Peter has already cut the wire. Mark starts vomiting horribly and falls to death. Seeing Mark, Carol comes after Peter with a knife in her hand, but she also begins to vomit. As she loses control, Carol falls from the staircase and stabs herself unintentionally. When Peter comes close to her to get the keys, she opens her eyes and tells him not to let her out. Peter goes to his parents' room, where the clock is. It seems like everything was planned by Peter's evil sister, who asks him about everything to confirm her escape. The clock is heavy, so, while moving it, it falls and breaks. Then Peter sees a small door. As instructed, silly Peter unlocks the door where he sees a sinister-looking facial structure looking at him. He quickly runs from there, goes to his room, and locks it. At that time, the boys with the microbus ring the doorbell. Here, we see a glimpse of the evil's extended hand, which is horrifying to watch. She moves the dead body of Carol. Then the main door opens up independently. The three big boys and Brian come inside wearing masks. Peter hides under his bed, hearing their voices. One enters his room, looks through his stuff, and eventually finds him. Another boy with the pig mask starts breaking things with a baseball bat. While searching the room, he sees someone's hair on the piano downstairs. Then the demon takes him under the piano and kills him. Brian, on the other hand, falls on the floor and sees the corpse of Carol, which is hiding in the cupboard. Then the demon also gets the boy with a bunny mask, who asks for help from Brian. After killing him, Brian sees long hair coming down to his face. The evil then also kills Brian. Hearing Brian scream, the boy who is in Peter's room comes outside, where the demon also kills him horribly, as Peter sees his headless body lying in the hall. On the other hand, Miss Denver is coming to Peter's home to help him. The devil then comes to Peter's room and starts saying in a husky voice that when he was born, they were so happy. But when she was born, they screamed. Then her father made her a pit, then a cage. While Peter was shining in his warm bed, she suffered among cobwebs and rats while learning how to climb, bite, and manipulate Peter. Then she gives him a gift as a trick-or-treat, the head of the boy in a curved pumpkin. Then she imprisoned Peter in the same place she had been trapped for years. Miss Devine then comes to Peter's house where she sees the dreadful situation. In the dining room, she sees the hair of the demon, and at that time, she hurts Miss Devine's leg and falls. Crawling, Devine wants to get out of this place. But Devine hears Peter's voice. He says to her, "Miss Devine, run." Hearing his voice, she can't run anymore, leaving him alone. So she goes upstairs to find Peter. As Peter sees his evil sister approaching, he warns Miss Devine, and she quickly shuts the door. Then she breaks the wall and brings Peter out of the wall. While leaving, even though Devine gets out, Peter's sister grabs him and locks him in that hidden chamber again. Then Sarah, Peter's sister, comes to him and tells him that as she looks like a monster, no one loves her. At that time, Peter hears Miss Devine's voice again. His sister crawls back to the basement to kill Miss Devine, but she can't as Peter grabs her long hair from the chamber and comes to the basement using it. With the help of Miss Devine, Peter pushes his sister back into the cell and immediately locks it. So she again starts manipulating him with the sweet voice and says they are alike, as he also killed their parents. Peter screams, "No." The film concludes with the monster sister reminding Peter that he will always have to stay close to her, as he is reminded of her presence whenever he goes to bed at night or sees a shadow move. Every creak, groan, and tap in the wall will remind him of her, as she's his family.